You might call it a strong claim, but it was an incorrect claim, as the EU now has been forced to concede. The UK's response was that great diplomatic trick of theatre where they summoned the diplomatic envoy for a meeting with the Foreign Secretary. And as you saw there in the clip, Boris Johnson taking the unusual step of taking a swipe at Brussels at the beginning of his weekly question and answer session in Parliament with the leader of the opposition, pointing out that there is no ban on UK exports of vaccines, even though effectively the UK is not exporting its vaccines. The only vaccines made here are by AstraZeneca, and there is a contract in place for it to supply all of them to the UK, a contract that it signed before its contract with the EU, as we've become so painfully aware of in recent months. And I think number 10, Downing Street, is really relishing this opportunity, because even after Brexit, bashing Brussels, treating it as the enemy, is quite popular with Boris Johnson's Brexiteer base. And what they're seeing now is another blunder by Brussels on the issue of vaccines, although of course much less serious than the blunder from earlier this week about whether or not to close the Irish border to vaccines.
Now, Darren, where did Charles Michel's claim of an outright ban actually come from?
Well, it was merely put in a blog post late last night, and clearly, as Tiger's pointed out, they've done somewhat of a reversal today, clearly saying that it wasn't entirely correct to say that Britain has had a ban on the export of vaccines. But let's be clear about this, where it originates from, not in terms of the actual facts, but rather the motivation behind it, is a strong element of frustration here in Brussels about the vaccine procurement programme, anger at some of the pharmaceutical companies involved in that, and also, it must be said, an act of defensiveness against strong criticism from national governments, particularly the German government and indeed political parties in that election year, who have put the blame very much on Brussels for Europe's slow vaccine rollout. And so in trying to defend itself in some ways, European or EU politicians have found themselves attacking those pharmaceutical companies, and to a degree the UK as well. The EU today insisting that they're the good guys in all of this, that they have allowed 35 million vaccines to be exported elsewhere in the world that have been manufactured inside the EU. Most of those, or a lot of them, have gone to the UK, but also to places like Canada as well. And so they're saying, you know what, if anyone is involved in vaccine nationalism, it is not us. We are helping the rest of the world, but you have to understand that we have to try and help our people, the European populations of EU countries, first. And that is why there's great uneasiness at the moment that Europe is suffering from a lack of vaccines while at the same time exporting millions to the rest of the world. And that was kind of summed up by Dr. Peter Liese. He's a German MEP, and he was trying to get to the nub of why there is this sense of frustration amongst some European politicians about how things are going, particularly when it comes to the issue of AstraZeneca and their role in not fulfilling their commitments or supposed commitments in the first quarter of this year.
The government and the European Union financed the development of the BioNTech vaccine and the development of the mRNA technology in BioNTech for many, many years. So the vaccine wouldn't exist without European and German support. Would we apply the same policy than the UK, we could keep it even for Germany. I don't advise my government to apply the same policy than the UK, but at least Europe needs to be very outspoken now. And I wouldn't exclude a complete export ban. Why 8 million doses of BioNTech Pfizer went to the UK when they don't deliver anything to the continent? This is just not fair. And we need to be much stronger in addressing this.
All right. Well, Tig, more information today about the UK variant. A new study found it to be more contagious, but also more deadly. What more do we know?
Yeah, that's right, Annalise. The UK variant, also known as B117, first identified here towards the end of last year. It has become the dominant strain here and is fast becoming so in other parts of the world too. We already knew it was more infectious, but now, as you say, a study by University of Exeter says that it's significantly more deadly, to the factor of between 30 and 100%. Combine that with the fact that we know that it's 40 to 70% more contagious, and the report authors say that that makes B117 a threat that should be taken very seriously. Now, there's nothing to suggest that the current crop of vaccines won't resist the UK variant, but it is, of course, something to keep us all on our guard while those vaccines are still being rolled out. Annalise?
And speaking of vaccines, Darren, the EU is going to receive some extra doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, actually 4 million extra doses. Is that a sign that production is starting to pick up?
Yeah, I think it is to a degree. We knew that Pfizer, about a couple of months ago, suggested that the number of vaccines weren't quite going to be as high as they had hoped because they were trying to reorganise the production facilities here in Belgium, but that supplies then would significantly ramp up, and now we're starting to see that with an extra 4 million doses for the European Union by the end of March. That will be divided up equally on a population percentage basis for each member state. Clearly welcome news. Now, there continue to be problems with the AstraZeneca supply. They are not going to provide the number of vaccines in this quarter, and there could be limitations in the second quarter too, though it must be suggested and put out there that those vaccine supply limitations have also applied to the UK and not just the EU with AstraZeneca. But we should get some welcome news tomorrow as well. Johnson & Johnson, which is in some ways a revolutionary jab because it only regards or only needs one dose, is likely to be approved by the European Medicines Agency tomorrow, which means that will be the fourth vaccine available to the European Union to use in the vaccine programme. So that's good news. A little bit to mitigate that, though, is that we're not expecting many of those doses to become available until the latter half of the second quarter, so end of May, June time. Have to wait on that. So there still are problems, delays. It's not going quite as quickly as people had hoped, but there is an expectation that things are starting to improve and that in the second quarter, April, May, June, the number of vaccines being administered in Europe should really increase quite substantially.